The base is dropped on a new year of Soccer Down here. Welcome to 2020. Welcome to a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. Jason Longshore, John Nelson here with you this morning. Lots of rumor and innuendo to get into. It's silly season. Y'all are used to this by now. We'll get you caught up on what's happened since we were with you last on Tuesday. John, is it just me, or are you completely confused by what day it is?
I am completely confused by what day it is. I honestly, part of me thought that this was a Monday because we're back at shows and everything. And so you get that Monday mood. You look outside, here at HQ, the weather's kind of crappy. But no, I'm completely and totally turned around as to where in the wide world of sports I am.
I have no clue what's going on at this point. These last 2 weeks with the holiday falling on a Wednesday, It's been weird. So I think we'll get back to normal over the next couple of days, kind of ease into it. Then next week, everything will feel back like it was. We'll see how different 2020 feels. Probably not very, but maybe we'll be able to make it a little different. Who knows?
I'm down with that notion, sir.
We will see. We will see what happens. But let's get into a few things this morning. I want to start with something that bugged me. Can I?
Sure.
Can I complain a little bit?
Complain away.
Okay. So I saw this quote make the rounds as I was preparing stuff for the show. Columbus fans have been kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with right back Chris Cadden. He's been on loan at Oxford United. Good. He's played very well at Oxford United, too. League One side pushing for promotion. I saw the quote, and I was like, wait a minute. This doesn't really make a lot of sense to say publicly because it's kind of a bad look at this point, but whatever. All right, maybe he caught him in an interview. Maybe somebody got a juicy quote. I don't know. No, it was actually in the club's official release about Cadden being recalled from his loan, heading to Columbus for preseason, going back to America. And Oxford United's manager, Carl Robinson, not the Carl Robinson who was in Vancouver previously, different Carl Robinson, Carl with a K. Carl said, personally, I think he has been badly advised to go and play in America at this stage of his career, and his agent isn't necessarily thinking of the player, but that is out of our hands and we move on. This wasn't a quote in an interview from a local media source. This was in the official release on the club's website. This is a young player who is likely coming back into a starting role for the Columbus Crew in Major League Soccer, but he should stay at a League One team that maybe gets into the championship next year, maybe. But this is a bad thing for him to do at this stage of his career. Has Carl Robinson checked his calendar? Has he seen that it's 2020 and not 1997? I don't know. I would probably expect to never see another MLS player or another player from Chris Cadden's agent end up at Oxford United or with Carl Robinson as their manager. I'm just shocked that a club would put this out officially in 2020, in 2019 or 18 or 17, pick your year, but to do this officially and put this out in this way, some people just aren't very happy about the rise of Major League Soccer at this point, or some still want to stick their heads in the sand or stick something else in the sand and not realize that it's not those days anymore. Just mind-blowing that this was actually put out by the club.
For me, the word that comes to mind is hubris. The cojones, the stones to think that you as a coach / Oxford United as a team in League One who is in that space right now in the promotion playoff, but you got a lot of folks breathing down your neck. The fact that you want to come out where you are in, I'm not just going to say the world landscape. I'm just going to say the British landscape in their table, you would be in the third division, if my math is right, in Great Britain. And you want to run your mouth, and I'm going to say it that way. You want to run your mouth with that kind of a quote about what you personally think of Major League Soccer and soccer in the United States. Full disclosure, I am a member of the Don's Trust with AFC Wimbledon. Carl Robinson, for 6 years, from 2010 to 2016, coached MK Dons, the bitterest of bitter rivals for AFC Wimbledon. MK Dons was
might be a little biased in this.
Yes, I am. So to have him, so Robinson runs a quote like this, and I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. And that's why I kind of buried the lead a little bit, because I wanted to put my thoughts into this, just really about, you got stones running your mouth like that when you're in the third division of British soccer and talking about MLS. But yeah, it aggravated me when I saw that the quote ran from Oxford United. Then I did the digging on Carl Robinson, and I'm like, oh, it's that guy. Okay, I'll add that kind of fuel to that fire. But yeah, this is seriously, dude, you want to run that game this part of the year? Yeah, that tremendous. Big thumbs up for me, pal.
Just so you can compare the two, since this is such a bad move for Chris Cadden to go to such a small club like the Columbus Crew. When you look at the market values of the rosters on Transfermarkt, Oxford United $13.11 million, Columbus $33 million, and Oxford United, almost half of theirs is a player, Ben Woodburn, who is on loan from Liverpool, 20-year-old attacking midfielder. So you take him out of the mix, and we're not even going to talk about the other players that they have on loan. Yeah, you're down to that type of level. And Columbus, and I've always thought that Transfermarkt is still catching up to the valuations of Major League Soccer players. I think they're getting there. Cadden, for example, is valued at $798,000. There were reports of kind of the top end. There was on a release clause on him, but what Columbus wanted to hear before they'd really start talking was $1 million. Don't know what kind of offer Oxford United actually made to keep him, but it just looks foolish, and this is something that MLS still battles with, is perception, and you still have Carl Robinsons out there who think that a player would be better served to play in League One than in Major League Soccer at this point, and he's just wrong. He's just flat out wrong. So that's where you're at. That got me going this morning. I was a little surprised to see first the quote, but then the quote on the team's official website in their release. That's the rest of it's all nice. Cadden is thanking the supporters of Oxford United for his time in Oxford and everything there, and it's all good. And then you just throw this quote in, like this is just standard business procedure to trash the players' club and league, and I guess the country they're going back to too, and trash the agent as well. We'll see how many more players end up going on loan to play there in general, because this is going to catch a lot of people's attention, not just MLS. But I don't think you'll ever see another MLS player playing for a Carl Robinson team.
Hope they don't. And Carl Robinson, perch and rotate. That's just, that fires me up the more that I see it.
Yep. It's just sad. You look at Cadden going into Columbus at right back. He's not going to walk into the starting lineup, but he's going to compete with Hector Jimenez and Harrison Offal. Offal signed a new contract. A little bit older. Don't know if he's going to be a guy who plays 34 matches this season. Cadden will get his opportunities. Some in Scotland, where Cadden's originally from, were speculating he could get a Scotland call-up. I think, this is only going to help him in that regard unless we're going to play the same game that old Carl Robinson's playing and say, oh, he's in MLS, so I'm not going to call him up. Johnny Russell has been in that boat. And again, let's start comparing talent levels, and I think you would see that he would fit just fine.
I think Johnny Russell might lay waste to folks if he were in League One.
Yeah, oh no, that's nonsense. But I think Russell at one point was not getting Scotland call-ups due to being in MLS. I think that changed. I know he's at least had some. If Cadden's one of the best right backs they have, they should be calling him up. But he's going to need to play at the club level, and that's the bigger question here. It's not about going to Columbus and going to MLS. That's such a big drop in level, and he shouldn't be there at this stage of his career. The question is he going to play? Is he going to earn the starting spot over a player like Harrison Offal, who's been one of the best right backs in the league? We'll have to wait and see if he can earn that, but he's going to have to compete for it. If he's going to sit the bench, then it's a different conversation on what he should be doing. But level-wise, no, stop Carl Robinson.
Yeah, just there's a rant that The Rock would always use in his days when he was going up against the Heels and they were facing off against microphones. And I would say it here, but pretty much I would imagine that everybody knows the rant that I would use here. But yeah, Carl Robinson can basically stick it.
Well, that's not the rant. What was the rant?
That he could have that sumbitch turned sideways.
You were going there. You could have went somewhere much, much easier. You didn't have to go into all that. I know you didn't want to go there, but you could have just went with the know your role and shut your mouth, right?
Yes, I would. I'll second that one just as much. Yes,
that's the easier play there. All right, it's a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, so we'll be taking your thoughts as
my thoughts
go.
On Carl Robinson.
Well, we already gave those. Those are already done. Ugh. We'll be taking thoughts on what Atlanta United's got to do in the upcoming window. We'll get into Matt Doyle's shopping list that he's updated for each MLS team based off what we've seen over the last month. I think he originally wrote it mid to late November, and he's posted an update to it. So we'll get into that, running through what the league looks like. You're seeing some activity around the different squads right now. Should be some announcements probably starting today. LA Galaxy, Seattle Sounders are active. Before we take a break, I want to ask you about the leak of Inter Miami's kit.
I like it.
Dropped yesterday. You might be one of the only ones because a lot of people did not like it.
No, the three stripes just growing on me on the shoulder.
Yeah, I'm assuming that is a 1-year thing. I want to hear the design story and design explanation about it because it was an Adidas template that predated MLS, but it's supposed to be something to symbolize MLS's 25th anniversary. Okay. The U.S. national team wore kits with the three stripes on the shoulder in like 1992. So, okay. That's fine. I mean, the black Miami kit, I like.
Yes.
The black one, no problem at all. I like it. That should probably be their primary. They could have done so much more with the white one. It might end up looking good in person. I do want to see what they do with the numbers because they can't put that really light pink with numbers on the back because then nobody's seeing anything.
Yes.
I guess you're going to go black numbers outlined in pink, which is fine. It's just they could have done more. They just do a pink kit. Just do a pink kit with black trim as the alternate. If you want to keep it simple and you don't want to start introducing secondary colors because I think their colors in their badge are just black, white, and pink.
Yeah.
I don't think they have any like light blue or baby blue or anything like that. So if that's where you're at, then just do a pink kit with black trim, and you could do black shorts, and you could do black socks with pink trim, and have some kind of design element on it, and there you go. Done. The white with the baby pink, the really light pink, it looks okay. I don't hate it. I just think they could have done more with it.
Yeah, I like the black. The black kit for me is the one that I like of the two, without question, because and also full disclosure, if I was to ever wear anything that was white, it would get something spilled on it within about 12 seconds. Traditionally, that's just how it is for me.
They don't design kits for your Butterfingers, John.
Yeah, so black kit for me, tremendous. And if I had that kind of disposable income and was interested, I would probably pick it up at some point, but not the other one.
It's not that good. It's good. They could have done more. And that's probably the biggest reason that people are riled up about it, is the expectations were far higher than what we got. It's okay. But this is your first kit ever, and all the hype about this club, this doesn't really do it. It's okay. It's not as awful as some have tried to portray it, but it's just not the, oh my God, that's amazing, that I think people expected.
No, it's cool. I mean, it's, like I said, I dig the black.
The black one's cool. The white one's okay. I think the white one will end up looking better in person. They could have done. They should have just done a pink kit. That's where I'm at with it. It should have just been a pink kit.
Pink
just
kit,
go
black
all the
trim.
way with it.
Yep, right there with you. But yeah, black one for me. Like it. Should have gone pink. White, okay. Not interested really.
Yeah, the black one's okay. I wonder if they'll do something different with the shorts. I don't want to see just all black. I mean, do white shorts with the pink trim with both. That's fine. Do something to break it up a little bit. We'll see. Let's take a quick break. We'll get into some Thursday thoughts on the other side of the break. We'll get you caught up on the rumor mill as well. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. January 2nd, first edition of 2020. It's a Thursday Thoughts edition. So if you guys want to join the conversation, tweet at us at Soccer Down here. If you're listening to this later, if you're not listening live, you can still tweet Thursday Thoughts at us. They might turn into Friday flashback topics. They might just be something we revisit tomorrow. That's all good, too. Ricky Ricardo had some thoughts about our conversation on Tuesday about the best player of the last decade, he took exception with my thoughts on this.
Finishing up Tuesday's show, he's going to have to be on Team Ronaldo for Player of the Decade. Messi is
Ricardo said yes.
Messi is like Tim Duncan to me, he says. Great player, won a lot. Now, this is in all caps. Not always creates the wow factor. Not too much for his country at the biggest stage. Ronaldo is like Kobe. Big-time winner, super exciting, crossed over internationally multiple wise before Messi from a pop culture standpoint. Stone cold killer in front of goal for clubs and country. Sorry, Jason, but this is the way. 2 crying emojis, #Thursday thoughts.
They're laughing emojis, John.
Okay.
They're laughing and crying. They're
laughing
crying, so hard.
So then fine. One's a laughing emoji and the other's a crying emoji. So you have 2 laughing and crying emojis.
Well, they're still wrong.
Bruh.
Really, Ricky?
Bruh.
Really? Go back to the first part of it.
Sure.
The part about Tim Duncan, first off, that Tim Duncan's going to be furious with you, but what was the part right after Tim Duncan?
To me, great player, won a lot, in caps. Not always creates the wow factor, not too much for his country at the biggest stage.
Not always wow factor? Lionel Messi. Not Lionel Johnson. Ricky. It doesn't mean if you think Ronaldo's the better player, which absolutely. Cristiano Ronaldo has scored a ridiculous amount of goals. He hasn't scored 579 in the last decade, and he didn't score more than a goal a game in La Liga, I don't think. And he doesn't have anywhere near the assists that Messi had. Ronaldo's an amazing player, and like I said, I think any other decade he would be the player of the decade. I just think Messi's a more complete player, and if you think Ronaldo's better, that's completely fine. We can argue about it, but come on, man. You know Messi gives you wow factor. Now, the country stuff, now that is something that comes up a lot. And it usually comes up in the context of Messi and Maradona and the greatest ever Argentine player. I haven't seen it come up as much in the Messi versus Ronaldo conversation. Ronaldo does have a Euro title. He does. He was part of that Portugal squad 2016 and was injured and didn't play in the final at all, if I remember correctly. But was obviously a huge part of that campaign. Messi took Argentina to a World Cup final, which I think is a bigger accomplishment. I do. Didn't win it, and that was his best opportunity, was 2014. That was the one, and I thought he had a good final, just he could not find the goal. 2018, that was an Argentine team that was a mess. 2010, Diego Maradona's managing the team and rolling around on the touchline and screaming and hugging everybody. And I mean, he started like 4 center backs in the game against Germany and just got blitzed. And I'm not putting that on Messi. And in 2006, he was just breaking through. So I think it's, and this is me who grew up idolizing Diego Maradona. I think it's silly to say that Messi's national team career isn't good enough to consider him the best ever player from Argentina, let alone the best player of the decade. I think getting to a World Cup final, not many people who can say that. Ronaldo hasn't. He won a Euro title. Messi's been to Copa America finals as well. He lost in penalties back-to-back times. So been to a bunch of Copa America finals now that I think about it. Ronaldo getting 1 Euro title doesn't beat Messi's national team contributions for me. It doesn't. I think Messi's the better player, and it's not to diminish Ronaldo by any stretch. I think Ronaldo has, from 2010 to 2019, the transformation of Cristiano Ronaldo from the tricky, dribbling winger who was unbelievable 1v1 to maybe one of the most ruthless number 9s that we've seen. It's impressive. There's not many players who have changed their game that much in a 10-year span. There just aren't. But I just think it's unlucky for Ronaldo to be doing this and be at the height of his powers when Lionel Messi is. Because I think Messi is going to go down as the player with the greatest career of all time. You know, I don't know if Messi's peak matches Maradona's peak. Maradona's peak was very short. You know, a few reasons for that. Lots of things. You know, there was lots of stuff like this. Lots of screaming, lots of singing, lots of dancing, substances.
Creative dietary choices, yes.
Yeah, probably lots of things. That's why Maradona's peak is like 5 years. You might be able to stretch it to 7. Messi has been doing this. His first World Cup was 2006. We're in 2020, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down. So I think Messi will go down as the greatest modern footballer. You want to start comparing eras, it gets difficult. Even, you know, Maradona in the 80s compared to Messi now, it's very difficult. Comparing Messi to Pelé, very, very difficult. I mean, Pelé, what he did at Santos at the club level can't compare to what Messi's done at Barcelona. It can't. So I think Ronaldo has had an unbelievable career, and he would be in that top 10 ever. And he's definitely in the top 2 of the decade. I just think Messi's a little bit better. But Ricky, you can't sell me on not enough wow factor. You can't sell me on that one. You got the staring panda gif.
Not the panda gif where you're smashing the keyboard on the desk.
No, he just got the stare down from the panda before the smashing commenced.
Okay, just checking.
It's all good, Ricky. I just disagree with you on this one.
Mm-hmm. As do I. I'm right there with you. I am Team Messi more than I am Team Ronaldo. Do I respect what Cristiano Ronaldo has done on the world stage, whether for club or country? Yes. But I've got to go with Messi. Messi has been my guy. And getting into the whole thing about comparing eras, you know, Pele, Maradona, Messi, Ronaldo, I can't do that. For me, you have all of these separate eras where the game is different for various reasons, and I do not compare Messi and Ronaldo with Pele or anybody back there. It's like Pele's era, completely different. Messi, Ronaldo, over here. I've taken something, moved it to the left-hand side of the table, taken the other part, moved it to the right-hand side of the table. I just can't compare eras.
You can compare them to a degree, and the reason why I don't think Pele's career matches up to Messi's as a whole, people are going to say the World Cups, which I totally understand. But at the club level, and you're talking the overall career, playing at Santos in Brazil in those days, even with the Libertadores titles and the Intercontinental titles that were, you know, just a one-off final over 2 legs, but still just one game to win the Club World Cup at the time, the Intercontinental Cup. You're not tested like Barcelona is, even with La Liga being a 3-horse race, Champions League every year, and the expectations of Messi and Barcelona in the Champions League every year. It's more than Maradona faced at Napoli, even though Serie A was just beastly at that time. You know, you didn't have the long European campaigns. You know, you look at Messi year to year and how many matches the guy's playing. It's not even getting into the national team stuff, but just the amount of matches and high-intensity, high-pressure matches that Messi's facing. And Ronaldo's facing right now, too. But, you know, Messi, it's just absurd how many goals and how many games he is scoring. I mean, in league play, and this is going back to the previous decade, 432 goals in 411 starts, 465 appearances. Yeah, it's nuts. That's league play. In cups, you throw in another 68 goals and 68 starts. In European play, you're throwing in another 126 goals and 143 starts, 158 appearances. To have that type of scoring record internationally in European play, which is almost the same as what he's doing in La Liga, that's nuts. That's just nuts. And then you go to the national team, it's still 72 goals and 124 starts. You know, it's hard to carry a dysfunctional team much further than Messi has over the years, because you want to get into the Argentine Federation, you're talking dysfunction. I mean, they hired Diego Maradona as a manager in 2009. That should tell you all you need to know. This past World Cup in 2018, I guess there was reportedly a coup d'etat, like, in the training camp. And the reports were that the players just said, no, this is what the lineup's going to be. To somebody like Jorge Sampaoli, who's had success. It's craziness. I mean, it's just... I can't fault him for Argentina's shortcomings. I think he's done about everything he can do in that regard. It's I think one of the most impressive things about both of these guys, when you talk about Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, is their durability. You know, neither one have had that serious injury that has taken them out for an extended period of time. That's just tough in these days. To be able to be that durable and play that many matches in a calendar year, it's impressive. And to be able to do it at the level that they're doing it, I mean, we're really lucky to see it. And there's no guarantee that when these two retire that we see players at that level for this long. So full credit to Cristiano Ronaldo, what he's accomplished. I just think Messi's had the slightly better decade.
And Ricky has come back in and admits, I'm just janking your chain, man. Ha ha.
Oh, well, you janked it. You got me going. It was the wow factor thing that got me going. That's what it was. The rest of it, nah. The wow factor thing, I was about to start throwing things.
And he does have an actual question we can get to here in the show. Rico okay. Richardson, for me, I'm hashtag Team Ronaldo. He's a complete package, short, long, on the only way to stop him is to make sure CR7 doesn't have the ball.
The differences, though, when you look at the two, and they do different things, so, I mean, that you have to factor that in as well. You can affect Ronaldo by denying service to him. Messi can go find the ball and still hurt you. It's hard to keep Messi off the ball completely. It's a lot easier to do with Ronaldo at this stage of Ronaldo's career. It's still a little bit easier to do when he was playing as a winger too, but they're different players, so it's different things. I mean, for Messi, if you're going to defend him, you're probably going to try to kick him as much as possible and take him out of his game that way. Get him frustrated. We've seen more frustration from him in recent years, you know, as he gets a little bit older, and he's probably been kicked more times than we would want to count. But Ronaldo, you can deny service. You can cut off the supply line to him, and he's not as effective. Messi can drop deeper and find it. And I think what Messi started to do later in his career, too, is become more of that creator, more of that playmaker. And that's an added part to his game. When you take away, you know, his touches in the final third, okay, he'll create something for somebody else.
Let's see. Rico says Messi is a system player to me compared to Ronaldo, who does well everywhere.
Nah, I don't think he's a system player. I think when you have a player like Messi, you have to build a system around him because he's that freaking good. And Pep Guardiola realized that, and you look at Pep's teams in Barca with Messi, and you look at Pep's teams at Bayern Munich and at Manchester City without a player like Messi, they're different because you don't have that player that can fix everything with magic. And that's what Lionel Messi does. I don't think he's a system player by any stretch. I think he's a player that you make systems to get the best out of. To say a system player is to say he wouldn't be successful in a different way of playing. I don't think that's the case. I think any team he went to, the manager would see him for a very short period of time and say, all right, here we go. Let's build it around this guy. Ronaldo, honestly, I think at this stage, Ronaldo might be more of the system player because he's got to have a team that's going to provide for him. You know, he's not going to be a player who's going to contribute defensively. He's not going to be a player who's going to drop deep and combine. He wants his service, and he's going to bury it. And when you have a player like that, that's what you do. Again, you feed him because he's the most effective player you have. We've talked about this with Joseph Martinez here in Atlanta. You know, when you have a player that is that effective, you've got to feed them. And Joseph is that guy, and he's earned that role over his 3 years of just unbelievable success here. Same with Ronaldo at Real Madrid and now at Juve, since he's become that number 9. Same with Messi from day one at Barcelona. I mean, you go back and read histories of Messi's career. Youth coaches would see him and be like, he's too small. We can't do anything with him. Then you see him play, and it's like, all right, let's put everything around him and get the best out of this guy.
Barcelona was good before Messi. Barcelona is a system, not Messi.
No. Barcelona was not what they were before Messi. They weren't. You can't make that argument because consistently they were not what they've been since Lionel Messi broke into the first team. You know, when they made the change to Pep Guardiola, you're coming off of Frank Rijkaard. You had success under Rijkaard, but you also were really starting to fall apart. That team got way too comfortable and lost its internal drive. They did. And Rijkaard I think Rijkaard was part of it too. I think he kind of lost it as well. And, you know, you had Ronaldinho partying all the time, putting on weight. They had to move him on. Other players they had to move on. It wasn't the same. It wasn't since Messi arrived. They've won titles. They've had eras of success, but not this long of a sustained era. They're not now what they were. Before, they would pop up for a while and then drop a little bit. Pop up for a while, drop a little bit. They've been at a sustained level of excellence since. And, I mean, you just take it from here. 3 Champions League titles with Messi as a key factor, 2 previously to that. And Messi was part of the 05-06 squad. So before that, only 1. That's it. I think to say Messi's a system player is not fair at all and just not true.
We got other folks with other questions having to do with outside of Team Ronaldo, Team Messi debates.
Okay. But this is what we do. When people hear things on demand and you can't join in the debate live, then cool. Throw them at us and we'll get to it. We got plenty of time.
That we do. Let's see. The Colonel and Inter Miami FC at Miami Football, FUTBOL MLS.
That's not the official account. I've seen a lot of people think that's the official account. It is not the official account.
No. But Colonel says somebody in Miami Fort Lauderdale got cojones. They're not wrong. Gotta love it. # Unite and Conquer. And for those who haven't seen it, it is two zeros placed next to each other. Left-hand side, number of Orlando City playoff appearances, beginning of the decade 0, into the decade 0.
I mean, yeah, it's true. But yeah, it's a fan account. I think some people thought that was coming from an official account, and it's not. It's just made to look that way. It's accurate. I mean,
it is.
Yes, and it's something that I don't think will be the case for much longer because Oscar Pereja is going to turn Orlando around. I really think that's the case. Just look at the additions that they've made. I think he'll get the academy functioning correctly. I think he'll get OCB, functioning effectively. And I think Orlando, give it a couple years. This year to expect playoffs might be a little much just because there's work to do. But by 21, they'll be in the playoffs. I'll be shocked if they're not.
And speaking of teams in Miami, Romario Williams ended up with the Miami.
The Miami FC. USL get the full name correct. Yes. They might come after you and capitalize the T in the Miami FC too. Don't forget that.
The Miami FC.
Yeah, I mean this is a USL Championship club now that we saw it in the North American Soccer League. We saw it when they were in NPSL. They were aggressive in building a roster. And this is a bold move for a USL Championship team. This is a player in Romario Williams who has the MLS experience that we've seen here in Atlanta. Columbus saw for half the season last year. And he's a player who's had a lot of success in the USL Championship, in Charleston and with Atlanta United too. So you're able to go out and get him. You're probably going to have to pay him handsomely to get it done. It's a no-brainer if you've got the resources to work with. I mean, if you're Romario Williams, you're at the point where you've got to make the decision, do I want to be what I was in Atlanta, what I was in Columbus, which was number 2 or 3 off the bench with the first team, play with the second team in USL Championship like he did here in Atlanta from time to time? Or do I want to drop down a level, probably make more money in this Miami situation, and be their number 1 guy? That, for him, if he wants to get to the highest level possible, I think that's the smart move right now, is drop down, have a blow-away year with Miami FC, the Miami FC, and then look for an opportunity if it comes. Because I don't think there would be a team that would sign him to the amount of money Miami will, and there's nobody who would promise the amount of playing time in MLS that he's going to get in USL Championship at Miami. So that's the way to go. It's a smart move, and it's probably a pretty bold, expensive move from the Miami FC.
Also on the board this morning, a question from Andy Hollows. Any chance Atlanta United brings Pogba back for center back depth? He performed well and seemed like a great locker room presence.
Yeah, I think the latter part is a big part of why that is a possibility. I think you've got to find the dollar amount that makes sense. And I think his performances here probably did put him on the radar of some other clubs around the world. So it's just going to be down to, is he going to have an opportunity to go start and be a key player somewhere, maybe in a slightly lower level, and if that's what he wants? Or does he want to come here, take probably less money than he made last year, although some of that's going to have to shake out based off CBA and other moves to see what the cap looks like. Does he want to stay here and be probably the first center back off the bench? If you bring him back right now, that's what he would be. If other moves happen, then it changes it. I think it's definitely a possibility. And I think that locker room presence and that personality is a big reason why it would be considered. It's just going to come down to dollars and cents. And I think in Florentine's case, it's going to come down to, does he want to be the number 3 guy and push to get time? Or does he want to go somewhere and maybe take less money or be at a lesser level and be the number 1 or the number 2 guy? And that's what it's going to come down to. But I do think it's a possibility.
John Nason says, don't know if you've discussed before, but don't miss This Is Football on Amazon Prime. He's only seen episode 1 so far, telling a story of Rwandans who love Liverpool. If the rest of the season is as good, I can't wait. # Thursday Thoughts.
I haven't gotten into that one yet. That's on my list. I need to get into it. Amazon Prime and honestly all the streaming services are creating some really interesting soccer content. You know, we've talked about the All or Nothing with Manchester City. The Leeds series was really, really well done. A lot of good stuff. So that's one that I have not dug into just yet.
Mm-hmm. Shiva is in with a couple of things this morning. First of all, happy 2020. Hope it's a great year for SDH and Atlanta United and everyone else. She has 2 questions. And then she had a third one before she went into work, but her first 2. 1, can MLS teams loan players to another MLS team?
Yes, but it's only young players. It's only certain types of loans. We've seen it a few times. Not all that common. I was actually pulling up the rules on it right now. I think it's players who are 24 years or younger that you can do this with. I'm trying to think of players who've went through this. It hasn't come up very much because it's a fairly new opportunity that has been created. But yes, it can be done. It's just not completely wide open in terms of who you can loan. So must be 24 years or younger at the time of the loan. Can only loan one player to another MLS club per season. You have to do it in the transfer window. They have to remain with the club they're being loaned to for the entire MLS season. So you can't recall them in the summer. And they don't compete against their club during the MLS season, which is somewhat common with a loan agreement. Not always, but somewhat. And it can have an option to make it permanent. But 24 years or younger, that's the cutoff.
Second question. Why do you think the club does not want to transfer LGP or Tito within the league?
Probably because they feel like they can get more outside. Probably you can get more resources or a larger transfer fee / compare it to allocation money than you could inside the league. I think some players have more value inside MLS. Some players have more value outside. And I don't know if it's an easy flow chart to follow, honestly. You know, I think it comes down to you can get a larger amount in cash in a transfer fee from outside the league for a player like Leandro Gonzalez Pirez, who has experience outside the league, versus a player like a Julian Gressel. I think Gressel would have more value inside the league. I think a Darlington Nagbe would have more value inside the league. I mean, Nagbe had offers from Celtic at one point, and it never happened. And you wonder if he just wasn't interested. So that makes it very easy that his value is going to be more inside the league. But a player like LGP, a player like Tito Villalba, their value might be outside the league. I think Villalba's value would be both, honestly. I don't think anybody inside the league would give you as much as Xolos might for Leandro Gonzalez Pirez. Tito will be an interesting case. I think his value could come either way. But you just have to kind of balance the two and do your conversion rates between TAM and GAM and cash. And then when you're doing the transfer fees outside, you also have to factor in how much goes back to MLS, how much is a reimbursement of what you spent on a transfer fee inside to bring that player in, and how much you can convert into allocation money for a player who's not a designated player. So you've got a lot of math to do, and I think that's what's going to determine it more than anything. Then
Shiva's last thought before she had to head into work, and so that is legitimately how it was phrased. She's like, she had one more random thought before she headed into work. The amount of criticism and negativity surrounding us in the upcoming season is so disappointing. Quote, lack of communication by the club regarding activities having a down 2020 because we're changing roster. And then 3 question marks. Close quote.
I have no idea. I don't get it either. The club's not going to communicate on rumors. They never have. They never will. Nobody does. So that's common. Nothing's been done yet. And you see reports that Leandro Gonzalez Pirez could, that transfer could be done at any point. Xolo's season starts next weekend. So if they're going to do it for the start of the season, they're going to do it soon. You can start to connect the dots there. I don't get the criticism either. I think it's really not paying attention to the big picture, to be honest. This is not a club who has made a bunch of sales just to bring in money and not reloaded, ever. It's not something that Arthur Blank's done with the Atlanta Falcons either. Say what you want about the way the Falcons have built a roster. I don't think you could call them cheap. I don't think you could say that they don't reward players who perform well either. So I don't understand it. I'm going to chalk some of it up to new experiences and just the first time that you've had maybe this much potential transfer drama in an off season, and just that consternation has got everybody riled up. But I don't get it either. The club can't communicate on stuff that's not done. So you're not going to get consistent rumor updates. It's never going to happen. No club can operate that way. And the rest of it, you have to wait until it shakes out. But I'm not expecting this club, just because players might leave, to not replace them. I had no idea why anybody would think that. I don't think they've done anything to give you that impression. And I don't think, if you look at Arthur Blank's other professional sports team, that the Falcons have done anything to give you that impression. I don't think you've ever seen them offload a bunch of talent under Arthur Blank's watch and not bring talent back in. So I don't know. You look at the moves this club has made from day one, both in a preseason situation, but then also in a season situation where you could see moves happen. And I think the track record's there. And I think I don't even know, it doesn't even get to a benefit of the doubt perspective, because one, you don't have any moves done yet. And if the LGP one gets done, then that would be the first big move out. The Nagbe move, if you were caught by surprise on that one, I don't think you were paying attention to any of the reporters covering the team, because this stuff has come up all season. And as Doug reported in the AJC, I think when the trade was made, there was a long-term offer made in the summer on a new contract, and it was turned down. So you have to make the move to bring in resources to replace a player like that. And right now you have one player who's going to be part of that replacement who came in last summer in Emerson Hyndman. And you could potentially have another player in Matias Villasanti who has been linked with a move to Atlanta. And now you're starting to get reporting, Roberto Rojas of Paraguay, who covers the Paraguayan league and game very extensively, is reporting that Monterrey could be interested. And the thing about that interest is Rojas says that Monterrey could make a bigger offer, and they might have made a bigger offer. I think playing time is going to be what it comes down to, because Villasanti, with the Nagbe move, would walk in and I think start in Atlanta based off what I've seen from studying his game. In Monterrey, you're going into a crowded midfield. And I don't know if there's a guarantee of as much playing time. And that's going to factor in for a young player like that, who probably ultimately, as most do, want to end up in Europe. You got to play to get there. And I don't know if even going to a club as big as Monterrey, which is a big, big club, is going to be the right move if he's not going to have as much playing time. And that's what it'll come down to for me. But these are the things that are out there right now, and this is how a transfer window goes. So you just have to follow along, and I guess the biggest thing for me is just there's never been any reason to expect this team to do things on a cheap budget. And I think some of the impressions that people are getting out there or people are giving out there that they're just selling players and that's all they're doing and all that, just because you're not hearing about rumors and the club's not talking about rumors, I think you're jumping to the wrong conclusion. So we'll see what happens. There's still a lot of time, and I know CONCACAF Champions League coming up. I know it's 2 months till the league opener now. That's a lot of time in this world. That's a whole lot of time in this world. So we'll see what moves get done, and we'll see what announcements start to get made as training camp opens up in less than 2 weeks. We're going to take a break, finish up hour number 1, come back, and jump into hour number 2 with some other rumors around the league and more Thursday thoughts from you guys. We'll be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, SDH, first of 2020. Thanks for everybody listening. I don't know if everybody is back to work or some of y'all are back to work or how that's going to go. With the holiday on a Wednesday, like I said, I don't know what day it is, let alone what the work schedules are for most out there. So hope you're enjoying 2020 so far and not freaking out like everybody. Don't have to freak out. It's going to be okay, y'all. I promise. It's going to be all right.
Well, don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do, which is just flip out.
I'm not. I promise. I'm not going to steal a goldfish either.
No. And Kramer having a flip out fit was what was going through my brain as you were playing that particular drop as well.
No, not going to do it. It's okay. There's still plenty of time.
Kevin from Charlotte starts off hour number 2. He says he read Doug's latest 2020 season thoughts and agree with Atlanta United looking to make more outgoing moves during the summer transfer window. It makes sense from getting multiple competitive offers. # Thursday Thoughts.
It definitely does. It's awkward because it's in the middle of your season, and that's why it's always been a challenge for MLS teams in this regard. I don't know, and I think Doug speculated that you could see Barco and Pitti go in the summer. I think the Pitti speculation is, I don't know how much is actually there on it, to be honest. Barco is a different conversation. I don't think they would want to have him go in the summer, but that might be the time where the biggest offer comes in, and it might be the time you have to do it. And if that's the case, then if you go out and bring in a replacement and you've scouted your replacement properly, or you have a replacement already in the squad, then you can manage that. It's not easy, but it can be done. I think Barco's the far more likely one to go in the summer. I would be pretty surprised if Pitti went in 2020, period, and I'd be very surprised if he goes in the summer. Yeah, I think Pitti's main value right now in the transfer market is in South America, in Brazil, and that's where rumors have been, but they've been kind of vague, honestly. I think his value is going to be to a big South American club where he's a legend in South America more than in Europe. I do. And the seasons are different in South America. It's not as much of there's more money to spend in the summer. You know, that's not the case, especially with Brazil. I mean, Brazil would be looking to spend now. So if he goes, I don't think it's in the summer of 2020. Barco, I could see going in the summer of 2020, and then it's how do you manage that? And if you go and get a player like a Villasanti and you have, you know, the midfield options that we've talked about with a Villasanti, with Remedi, with Heinemann, with Lorenowitz, with Adams, you can play a trio of them. Pitti can play on the wing. Right now, you have Gressel, you have Villalba. We'll see what other moves happen. Both of those guys are ones that have question marks next to him for right now. Not so much Gressel because he's under contract. Villalba was one that people expected to see go in this offseason, and there's been talk that he's been in the market, but no real rumors connected to him just yet. Welcome to silly season. This is the silliest of silly seasons Atlanta will be in. And I think I don't think there's going to be more business done in the summer than now. I don't. But could you see a Barco go in the summer? It's possible. It's possible because a club might make the bigger offer in the summer to bring him into their preseason and see where he fits into their team. But you also have to factor in the Olympics with Barco. And he would likely be part of Argentina's final squad if he has the year here that I think most are expecting him to have. So is that going to factor into his transfer viability in the summer where he would almost immediately after the transfer is done go join Argentina and play in the Olympics? Or you're going to have that conversation if you're going to spend a lot of money to bring him in that we're not going to let you do that. And where does he fall on that? We don't know yet. Because it's one thing to miss the qualifying tournament. That's a different conversation than missing the Olympics. So, don't know. This would be, outside of him being an overage player down the road, this would be his opportunity to play in an Olympics. And I don't know how important that is to him.
Cheap Whiskey this morning wanted to ask.
A little early
what
for Cheap
players,
Whiskey, isn't it?
At Cheap Whiskey 38.
Well, it's a little early for Cheap Whiskey. It's only 10:06.
It depends on where you're tweeting from.
I guess that's possible, but I think it's always early for me for Cheap Whiskey. But go ahead.
Yes. What players do you see as real possibilities for Atlanta United? Are you as concerned as the majority of the Atlanta United fan base? ? Thanks! !
No, I'm not as concerned just because of the track record and there's still a lot of time. I mean, what players are realistic possibilities? We've talked about this before. The types of players you're looking at to replace a Leandro Gonzalez Pirez. Names, it's not easy to answer because the market is so large. I think the profile of the type of player you'd be looking for is a player who is going to be comfortable with 60, 70 passes a game. You're going to want to have somebody who has that long ball in them because that's such an important part of Atlanta's build-up to open things up from time to time. But I don't think you want a player who is a carbon copy of Miles Robinson. I don't know if you want a player who is a carbon copy of Leandro Gonzalez Pirez either. I think if you're going to go out and get a new player, one, you want to get a little younger. Two, I think you're looking for a little bit more of a ball-playing center back, and Leandro is a good ball-playing center back, but I think you could look to get even better there because you don't need the physical side as much. Because look at the idea when Leandro came in to partner with Parkhurst versus partnering with Miles Robinson. Very different. So I think you can look for even more technical, less physical, because now you have a more physical partner in Miles versus Parkhurst. So I think you're looking 22 to 25 years old. I think you're looking for somebody who's comfortable with a lot of passes per match, a very technical player, and a player who has that long diagonal pass in their locker. And that's where you're looking to go. Now, you could go get that in Argentina. You could go get that in a variety of countries in South America. You could potentially go get that in Europe as well. And that's what it's going to come down to. I think that's what you're looking for. More than names, it's more about the profile, because there's a lot of players who can fit into that profile.
Michael Head, realizing this is a minor question, any news on the sleeve sponsor? Any other club besides LAFC who announced Target? And Michael Head is lobbying for hashtag Waffle House, please.
Waffle House would be great. Haven't heard any updates on that yet, but that I'd be surprised if it's not sold for 2020. Other than just trying to jack the number up as high as you can by creating some bidding. I think that'll happen ahead of the 2020 season. We have a little bit of maybe. There it is. The full stadium games have been announced for Mercedes-Benz Stadium by Atlanta United. This is part of the multi-game ticket pack that goes on sale today. The 6 matches are FC Cincinnati, March 7th, the opener. Philadelphia Union, June 20th. Seattle Sounders, July 12th. New York City FC, August 1st. LAFC, August 16th. And Columbus Crew, September 26th. That's the home finale. So the home opener, the home finale, and Philadelphia, Seattle, NYC, and LAFC are your others.
Get your tickets now or get on a waiting list near you if you're looking to be a season ticket holder.
Season ticket holder, yes. These are the multi-game pack. So yes. Get your tickets now.
Get your tickets now. Katie Weaver jumps in this morning. We've had our best of decade conversations, parenthesis, hashtag Team Messi, close parenthesis, for the 2010s. Now she'd like to look into the crystal ballon to 2029. Who's the decade's best internationally, and predict a few decade best of MLSs for the 20s, hashtag Thursday Thoughts.
Jeez. Katie, you're asking me to predict
rest.
12 to 15-year-olds that could be that guy. I don't know. I got nothing in that regard. I mean, it could be somebody who is breaking through right now as a teenager or a very young 20s. I think we were talking world first, and I think that's a big ask for George Campbell to be one of the best center backs in the world in 10 years. Maybe. I don't want to rule it out, but man. I mean, worldwide, who are we looking at? A Phil Foden, a Jadon Sancho, Joao Felix, maybe? Mbappe. How old is Mbappe?
Is he still 19, or has he gone into his 20s?
He's close. So, yeah, he would be right around 30-ish. He's 21, so he'd be 31 in 10 years. Maybe. He's getting a little further along. and they're probably just a little bit further too, like your Frankie de Jongs and your Matthias de Ligt. So you're probably looking younger than that. I mean, I guess right now, if I had to go to the bookmaker and put $5 on it, I'd maybe go Foden, maybe. And I'm sure there's a young Argentine or a young Spaniard or a young French player that's 15 or 16 right now that's probably the better pick. But those are so hard to call. In 10 years in MLS, I think a lot of them are going to be coming from, academies and such that are probably still in the academies. So it's a little early. You look at the U17 team that just went to the World Cup a few months ago. I mean, George Bello would be a player that you would put into that conversation based off his track record so far and his projection. I don't think that's too crazy to look at right now. Gianluca Busio is a player that I think you have to consider in this conversation. Ricardo Pepi is a player that you would consider in this conversation in Dallas. Danny Leyva in Seattle is a player that I really like. Holding midfield, I could see him as a player who fits into this conversation. We'll see about Joe Scally, who's going over to Dortmund, if I remember correctly, after this season at NYC. Those are the ones that have impressed me the most out of the U17s. I like Ulianes. I like Sebastian Soto a lot. Josh Sargent should be in this conversation as well. So you've got a lot of young talent coming through. That's never been as much of the issue. It's more about those 15 to 20-year-olds and how they develop as 20 to 25-year-olds. That's the hard part that hasn't been as strong from a United States perspective. And it's something that has to get better. Hopefully
Mbappe has a 13-year-old brother, Ethan.
I'm not picking somebody just because they're their brother.
Real Madrid is apparently.
Well, of course they are, because they have the money to speculate on that. And he's 13. He might be playing handball by the time he's 18. There's no way to guarantee that. It's too early to project things. And that kind of leads us to another conversation that has splintered off into a bunch of different conversations on Twitter, which is great. Chris Hutchison started it. He said, did anyone else hear major overtones of Atlanta United's philosophy in the Edwin van der Sar interview on Men in Blazers? And I didn't see that, but Sean W. on Twitter tweeted part of it, and he said that what stood out to him when talking about the Ajax Academy was their focus on developing the individual player, not teams, and they didn't focus on results. Winning was only important with the first team. And that's kind of got a lot of conversations going on social media, which is really good. But Sean said, we focus too much on winning at U10 to U14 at the expense of player development. And I 100% agree. It doesn't matter what a team's winning percentage is at U10, U11, U12. I don't think it matters at U13 or U14 either. I don't think it matters, honestly, until you're getting more into like a U19 situation, honestly, because there is a balance. I think it's one thing to say what Van der Sar said, that we don't focus on results. Winning's only important with the first team. But you don't want your youth teams to be getting pummeled either, because you have to create a culture of winning. So it matters, but it matters more the older you get. It shouldn't matter anything. It definitely doesn't matter when you're not playing 11v11. U10 rankings are one of the biggest jokes in soccer. Who cares? Some of those players might be playing different sports in a few years. Doesn't matter. And it doesn't make the players any better for their team to be ranked. those players, it's all about the individual development and playing the games and getting the experience, but the actual results of the games don't really matter for anything. It's like the senior academy teams, yeah, you want them to know how to win. You want them to learn what it's like in a match where you're getting overrun, you're playing a team that might be a little bit better than you, and how to grind out a win, because that's something you have to learn before you get to the first team. I'm fine with that. But it has to be more about individual development. And when you look at what Atlanta United's philosophy has been from day one, it's been that balance. And I think Tony Annan's done a good job of finding that balance, because coming in and being the new big thing in town, they can't put teams out there that lose to other clubs locally on a regular basis. Some games, sure, yeah, individually, fine, it happens. Everybody loses at some point or another, even the best teams in the world. But you have to put out a product that says you're the best, because that's part of recruiting. I get it. It's part of bringing in talent. It's part of the conversation, like it or not, for an Ajax. It's not as much of the part of the conversation there, because who are they really competing against? Feyenoord, PSV. That's about it. If you're a top young player in the Netherlands, you got maybe two competitors. If you're a top young player in Spain, you've got more to compete with. If you're a top young player in the United States, you've got a lot of clubs competing to try to get you in. And now, and I think where it's headed is to get rid of the territorial rights with MLS academies, then you're going to increase that competition. Now, I think your Atlanta players, your best Atlanta players, are going to be with Atlanta United. Then it's going to be your next best Atlanta players. Do you want to stay locally and stay in the kind of shadow and be around Atlanta United if you're playing in a different club? Or are you going to see an opportunity to go move to Dallas or move to Kansas City or move to Miami, move to another academy that might promise a quicker route to the first team, that might be a better fit for your game? That could happen in growing numbers. So that competition that factors into recruiting is what is the balance with developing individual players. Ajax, being the top dog, doesn't have as much of that, so they can focus on it a little less. But I think even at their top youth teams, at their older youth teams, those players have learned how to win. And that's the balance between individual development. But I completely agree with what Sean said. We focus too much on winning at U10 to U14. And those trophies don't mean anything in the grand scheme of anything of developing talent. Do they mean something to a kid who just loves to play and isn't looking at making a career of it? Yeah, absolutely. But do they mean something in terms of saying this player is going to be in Katie's conversation about the best players in 10 years? Nah, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. So it's not easy. There's no one blueprint. Even Ajax has gotten it wrong in different eras of their club. Barcelona's gotten it wrong in different eras of their club. Look at right now, Barcelona's not developing a whole lot of talent internally. They don't have that next generation coming through like the La Masia generation that brought forth, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi. That you don't have that coming. So they've got to fix that. Or they're going to have to go out and spend and bring players in from outside, and then you lose a little bit of that DNA of what Barcelona is. Atlanta United's still building what that DNA is. Ajax at times, and when Frank de Boer took over the first team, part of his job there was to bring players through that had the Ajax DNA, because they had gotten away from that. They were spending money on transfers coming in, and that's not what they've generally done. Here, I think long-term, you would love to be in a situation where you're not spending as much on bringing players in because you're developing your own. But that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen overnight for a Barcelona, let alone a club that's 3 years old. So you want to create more George Bellows. You want to give a George Bello an opportunity to make it. You want to continue to give an Andrew Carlton an opportunity to make it. With the talent that he has, with the talent that Bello has. Lagos Kunga, same thing. It's why those guys are still here with an opportunity to make it. I think Bello is your starting left back going into the season. And that's partially due to his talent. That's partially down to design, because you want to give those young players an opportunity to break through and make it, because that's going to help your academy grow. And that's what you need to do. Dallas is doing it. Kansas City is doing it. I think you're going to see more clubs get it right, but you're also going to see some clubs that opt not to put as much of an emphasis on the academy. Chicago hadn't, but I think now with their new hires, maybe they're going to reverse that. New England is putting more into it now, and they've never really been one to develop a ton of talent. Development is a very difficult thing to quantify, and it's a very difficult thing to do. And that's why the managers who are good at it, whether they're at a youth side, whether they're with a team at a youth side, or whether they're in a DOC, a academy director, what have you, that's why they're incredibly valuable if they've got their finger on the pulse and they're doing it consistently and developing players coming through. But it's an incredibly difficult thing to do right.
Daniel Price, who has chimed in this morning saying that it's the first show of 2020 in silly season and it's already silly.
Of course.
That, yes, he says, I think I can get where people are coming from. Well, I trust the front office without a doubt. I am, however, full of anxiety right now with the overall radio silence we've had most of the offseason.
But radio silence, guys, they've never talked about rumors before. And just because reporters here and around the world aren't picking up on rumors doesn't mean that Atlanta United's not recruiting players. I mean, nothing's changed except you're not getting the reporting from outside about rumors right now. That doesn't mean things aren't happening. And I think it's an assumption to jump to that when that's never been the case in the past. So that would be my the radio silence thing, I think, is a red herring. I don't think it has anything to do with it.
Felipe this morning came out with a tweet, and it was Venezuela manager Rafael Dudamel's departure from the national team could signal a return for Joseph Martinez. 2020 Copa America kicks off this summer. Off of that, Ricky Ricardo says, well, my hope that we would have Joseph in the summer has gone away. Happy for him, sad for Atlanta United.
Has the Dudamel departure been 100% confirmed just yet? It's been bubbling up. Actually, yeah, it looks like it has been confirmed now. So he's headed to Atlético Mineiro in Brazil. And remember, Joseph Martinez's letter about stepping away from the Venezuelan national team was specifically linked to his treatment by Dudamel. So does that change with somebody new coming in? It could. It depends on who it is, and it depends on what happens. So I don't know if you can necessarily jump to conclusions just yet, but Joseph Martinez is one of the best players from Venezuela and should be part of their national team, period. I think he's their best striker, period. I think he's a better option than Salomon Rondon right now, who's playing in China. And I think when you look at the ages, it should be building around Joseph and Rondon coming off the bench at 30 years old to get this team to a World Cup. And that's the ultimate goal. And I know it's going to result in him being away for international duty from time to time. But for a player of Joseph's caliber, you're not going to hope that that doesn't happen for him. If he's able to get Venezuela into a World Cup for the first time and he plays a big role in that, you can't quantify what that means. You can't. And you can't quantify what it means to Atlanta United as a club. Because that's another player that you have helped elevate and is playing a big role on the world stage. That's big. That's big for the long-term growth. And does it mean you might miss a few games? It does. And it means that you need to continue to grow the depth. And this is, again, why roster sizes need to be bigger. It's why caps need to be bigger, so you can have top-quality, second-tier players in your depth chart that can step in from time to time and can also push and increase the level of competition, which increases the level of the league as a whole. So hopefully that happens, because you shouldn't have teams that are decimated by call-ups, especially call-ups during parts of the season where you're playing. And in the summer, with Copa America moving to a different timeline going forward, there will be another Copa America in 2020. It is June 12th to July 12th, and that would take Joseph away from some time with Atlanta United. There is a short break in the summer for MLS. I want to say it's like 2 weeks. It's very short. I don't know if it even overlaps with that. So that would be an issue. That would be something that you would have to be able to deal with, or you're going to have a guy, well, your window doesn't open until July 1st, so you're going to have somebody in before that. But you might not know who the manager is and all this. So it goes back to, I think, our original conversation as the year concluded for 2019 on the season side. You need a number 2 striker, and you need a number 2 goal scorer with this team. You need somebody to be a player like we saw in 2017, where Tito Villalba scored double-digit goals, like we saw in 17 and 18, where Miguel Almiron was contributing, 10 goals. Can Julian Gressel be that? Possibly. Can you find another one? And especially, can you find a second forward who could at times partner with Joseph and be more of a true 2-forward setup than we saw with Pitti playing that role or Barco playing that role? Maybe. Could you go get a target number 9 to give you a different look? Maybe. But I think this could increase the need to go get a true number 2 striker for this team. But we have to wait and see who the new manager would be and if things change with Joseph's relationship with that new manager. And we don't know where the Venezuelan Federation feels on it. We don't know if they might say, well, we don't want to bring him back until he apologizes or whatever. And we don't. There's still a lot up in the air with that.
Schedule gap for Atlanta United. They're in San Jose May 30th, and then they don't pick back up until the away game in Houston June 13th.
Yeah, and that's right the day after the tournament starts. So
there's a lot.
Noah Linkate chimed in and said Jan Hurtado could be a good player for Venezuela at striker, but he's very young. I like Hurtado a lot. He was a player that I think he was at Gimnasia before he went to Boca, and he was one who grabbed my attention. He struggled a little bit in the transition to Boca, which it happens sometimes. You're going from a smaller club to a much bigger club. Unbelievable talent. Really, really talented young player. I think he could be. He might be better out wide, but if you can create a front 3 with Joseph, with Hurtado, and then I don't know what the other option would be, Venezuela could be a handful. This is the best talent Venezuela's ever had, and this is their best chance to ever qualify for a World Cup in the current format. Now, we don't know what it'll look like with the 48-team World Cup. It should be easier for them to qualify. It's still going to be difficult because they're not as strong as the rest of South America generally. But this generation of Venezuelan talent, this is their best chance to ever qualify for a World Cup. And Jan Hurtado is part of that too.
El Mataflow with a question this morning, and he does classify it as a random inquiry.
We're getting lots of random inquiries. I like it.
With the dominance of European teams at the World Cup in the 2010s, what South American team or teams do you see with the best chance of breaking the streak? #Thirsty Thoughts.
I mean, it's the usual suspects. Argentina should be better, but they're a mess organizationally, and until that changes, I don't know if anything changes there. Brazil is always part of this conversation. I think we've expected Colombia to break into that group, and they just haven't quite got over the hump. they have the talent to. I think a wild card, because they're developing, I think, far more talent than they used to, is Ecuador. Ecuador could be one that could be in that Colombia conversation about jumping up a level. I think Brazil and Argentina are the two obvious answers just because of the sheer amount of talent, and both have more talent coming because they always do. Colombia is the one that we've expected to join that group by now and make it a trio. They haven't quite done it. Maybe a Copa America title this time around could do that. I don't know if Chile is still quite there. I think it's Colombia 3, and I think it's Ecuador who could be 4, and Ecuador could be the biggest surprise. I think in the next decade, they could be the one that takes the biggest jump in South America.
With our current affair breaking news this morning about Atlanta United going big 6 times, Ricky Ricardo agreed with all 6 except for the NYCFC match. I know that they were the 1 seed in the East, but a full stadium versus Inter Miami would have been his choice. All the rest makes sense.
Yeah, I think the NYC got it because it's a national TV game. Is that a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon? I think it creates a big spectacle. And I think that's why it probably got it. I think that's one of the ABC games, if I'm not mistaken.
The Saturday, August 1st game, 3 o'clock Eastern, ABC.
Yeah. Okay, it's a Saturday, not a Sunday.
Matt Wagner. You guys did a great job after the end of season breaking down all the deadline dates for roster changes. Thank you, Matt. What are the key dates now? We have a lot of holes, and I'm curious to see when it happens.
It's a little harder to break down now because we know training camp January 11th. We know a February 8th preseason game. We know at least there was talk of a trip to Guadalajara for a training camp. We don't have an update on when that would fall just yet. We know the CONCACAF dates. We know that the transfer window in MLS technically doesn't open until mid-February, but that doesn't really matter. Players can come in and train and be part of preseason. You're not going to miss any games because official games don't take place until after that window opens. That's a paperwork thing, so that doesn't really factor in. Windows around the world are now open, so everything will start to kick up because of that. I don't think the Super Draft will end up being a big factor in building this team in 2020, but that date is January 9th. So a week from today, you'll have the MLS Super Draft, the first 2 rounds anyway. And that's really it. I think the preseason camp's opening, and that's January 11th for teams in CONCACAF. It's a week later, the 18th, for other teams in MLS. And preseason games getting underway is when you're going to start to see more and more activity and more discussion. And that radio silence that's freaking everybody else, I think, will start to dissipate.
Gustavo has come back in this morning.
Feliz Año Nuevo, Gustavo.
Yes, and he says, and this is a 2-step because after having a conversation with Joe Boss, there was a second tweet in the sequence. He says, I leave for a week, and now when I have to return from Bariloche, I find that LGP's already been sold. We have no replacement for Atlanta United. The Paraguayan has not arrived yet. I hope it's not like Maradona says, they let the turtle escape. Should I worry? And then Joe Boss said, LGP equals turtle.
It's a phrase.
And then, yes. Gustavo then realized he's leaving step by step. In one moment, I thought he was secured. Now he's going to Liga MX with a question mark.
Yes, they had that conversation. There's really not much to add here. Gustavo's missed a little bit with his time away, but hopefully it was a good time away for Gustavo, and he is now enjoying the summer of Argentina.
Yep. And you mentioned Noah Lenkite. He also had something else this morning. He says, if Atlanta United are smart, after they sell LGP, they'll find a younger player with more potential. Noah likes Cameron Carter-Vickers, who played with Miles on the USMNT and was just called back from loan to Tottenham from Stoke. He's a great option.
Yeah, there's rumors that he's going to end up at Derby, though. I haven't seen any progression of that just yet, but the speculation was he would be headed to Derby County and joining Wayne Rooney at Derby County, who he's set to make his Derby debut this afternoon.
Well, and there's also discussions that apparently Derby's having issues paying their players currently.
Well, that's good.
Welcome to Derby County.
We also have an update from Joe Patrick from a few minutes ago as well. Joe said, a source tells me Atlanta United has shown no interest in Tottenham's Cameron Carter-Vickers, though other MLS clubs have inquired about him. The player, however, sees his immediate future in Europe and was surprised to be left off the latest U.S. men's national team roster. I think he was left off because he's got work to do on the club side now, and that's where he needs to focus. So I don't think that he should be surprised about that. He needs to end up at a club where he's going to play. And that was the thought at Stoke, and then they changed managers, and he fell out of favor. So you had to recall him, and Derby was the one that I had seen in Europe that was interested in him. But they might have to find some money to actually pay people on time.
Yes. Katie Weaver's back in. She goes, for what it's worth, Ronaldo was 24 in 2010. Messi was 22. So I don't think that potential stars.
I think they're unique, though. I don't know if we're going to see, Messi and players like Messi, at this age, and Ronaldo. Ronaldo's an absolute freak physically. I don't think we're going to see many 34-year-olds be among the best players in the world on a regular basis. I think you're usually looking at guys who are in their late 20s. So Messi and Ronaldo being the stars right now in that conversation. In 10 years, I don't know if it's going to be 32 and 34-year-olds in that conversation. I don't think that's common. So I think it's going to be a little bit different. And in the MLS side, I mean, the top MLS young talent in 10 years are probably guys that we don't know who they are yet. Because you're going to want your guys who are young talent right now. And the ones that we mentioned, those are the ones that I think some of them will be in Europe in 10 years. Not all of them, because I think that's going to change. I think you're going to see more guys want to stay in MLS because the league's continuing to grow, even if Oxford United might disagree. I think you're going to see more guys want to stay. But if you're talking about the potential of a Bello, a Busio, a Pepe, you're going to see some of those guys go to Europe. So it's your top young talent in MLS at that time. They're going to be between 18 and 22 at that time. So you're talking 8 to 12-year-olds right now. And I'll have to go check the rankings of best U10 teams in the country as to who they might be.
I have no idea.
No, nobody does. Nobody does. Don't act like that's a big deal. Nobody does.
Michael Ruiz was at Disney World on New Year's Eve, and he gave us a list of the teams that he saw represented through jerseys. He said it's interesting to see who was the leader. Also went to the Cap One Bowl yesterday. My apologies. And Orlando City is pretty well represented when walking around downtown. So here's the list, and I'll just give you the ones who had more than one. Juventus, Chivas, Orlando City each had 2. There's one at the top who had 5, and that was Atlanta United.
It's not a big deal. Like, you act like that's a shocking thing.
No, I just think it's a cool thing.
It's a thing. I mean, it's Disney World, which how far is that from Atlanta, really? Not very. Probably a lot closer for Atlanta United fans to go than for, Italians and Mexicans and Costa Ricans and Englishmen. And, you're going to get more Atlanta United stuff. And I think you're also dealing with a fan base that's bigger, in MLS than anybody else. So, yeah, it doesn't even surprise me at this point. It's very cool. But no, it's not a shock. And to see more Atlanta stuff than Orlando stuff isn't a shock, because I don't know how many locals are going to Disney World on a regular basis who would be wearing the Orlando stuff. It's far more likely for people to go there on a vacation from Atlanta than locals in Orlando to go, I think.
And here's the randomness of the list from Disney World. Toronto FC, Portland, Timbers, France, San Lorenzo, Porto, Ecuador, Valencia, Man City, Palmeiras, Flamengo, Boca Juniors, Liverpool, Vasco da Gama, Bayern Munich, Cardiff, Brazil, Costa Rica, Cincinnati, Pumas, and Monterrey.
Welcome to Disney World.
Very, very cool. And then in our discussion about going back and forth with El Monteflo with South American influence, he says, personally, his tier 1, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay. Tier 2, Colombia, Chile, Peru. Tier 3, Venezuela, Paraguay, Ecuador, and Tier 4 is Bolivia. He says, and he's apologizing for that. He says he agrees things look good for Ecuador, but I've seen this so many times from them, and I've just lost hope.
I have hope. Monteflo. I have hope that Ecuador can get into the second tier. Uruguay, I think, is right between the first and second tier, and Chile is probably there too, along with Peru. I think Ecuador can get into that conversation and maybe head that group up. That group feels like a bit of a toss-up at this stage. And I think Ecuador would be the one on the rise out of that group, and Uruguay might be the one that's falling in that group. And Brazil and Argentina are the top two and until things change dramatically, in my opinion. We do have a little bit of news out of the Netherlands, which is very interesting. New York City FC has been linked to Giovanni van Bronckhorst for a long time. And he was brought in to be part of the City Football Group management group. Some thought that he might end up replacing Mikel Arteta on the bench for Manchester City. He didn't. They stuck with the same group that they've had all season. And now you're getting reports out of the Netherlands that Giovanni van Bronckhorst will be headed to Ajax's Chinese partner club in the short term, which I'm wondering if that would mean he is leaving City Football Group as a whole and severing that relationship. It's Guangzhou in China, but that's not what anybody expected. The questions were really starting to come about NYC because you hadn't heard an update. But now, if he's out of the mix, I don't think anybody's been linked to New York City outside of him.
No.
And they're the last ones on the board.
I was going to say, if I was an NYCFC fan, how concerned should I be if this comes to pass?
Considering that they are playing preseason matches in the Florida Cup in a few weeks, you should be pretty concerned. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, not necessarily about this specifically, because I think the likelihood of getting him had diminished just because it could have already happened. But this is a little bit of that wake-up call as to, well, wait a minute, this was the only guy that was linked, even though that was dissipating. He was still the only one linked, and now he's going to China. I'll be curious to see how this plays out, because the other part of him leaving City Football Group to go to an Ajax partner club, how long is Pep Guardiola going to be at Manchester City? And I think some of the thought was that Van Bronckhorst would be the guy who might be positioned to replace him there. And you would have thought New York City in the short term might have been something he did for the whole of the ownership group. Well, maybe not. Intriguing.
Yes, that would be the gif of the horse from Ren and Stimpy, where you're just kind of sitting there and you're thinking real quick. You're trying to move your head from side to side. That is very intriguing.
I mean, New York City right now.
Dude. Uh-huh.
I just don't know. Time's up. Who's going to be in charge?
Final Jeopardy. No freaking clue.
Oh,
there's your DT. No freaking clue.
That's the problem.
And then one other funny thing from Jorge this morning. He says no analysis or anything. He thought that this was just funny. Past RSL target Anderson Julio and Pumas on alleged interest on the player. Pumas inquired about the wrong player. They meant to ask about his younger brother.
Oops. That's a problem.
Yeah. Johan Julio. Wrong Julio.
We'll see what happens there. Good job, Pumas.
Wrong Julio, who dis?
You might need to upgrade that scouting department a bit. Gee. All right. We're going to take a quick break since we haven't in hour number 2 because it's been a silly hour number 2. We're going to do that very quickly so I can refill my water, and we'll be back to finish everything up right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Final segment. January 2nd edition of SDH, first of 2020. Thanks for all the Thursday thoughts and questions and silly season and all of it. It's only going to get sillier until we get into real matches, so brace yourselves. Try not to freak out. Try not to lose your mind about radio silence because it's going to be a thing for a little while. The radio silence in New York is even bigger because I'm reading another report from De Telegraaf in the Netherlands about Van Bronckhorst, and reportedly he turned down an offer to head to New York. And the thing about heading to China, he's going to China with his agent. The club that he's going to already has a trainer in the translation here. Former footballer Dragan Stojkovic, but they have a vacancy for head of training, and I'm going to look to see if that's like technical director, which is what I'm thinking. So he would be turning down this opportunity to go be a technical director in China instead of being the manager in New York City. Okay. And
right
the
on.
whole Manchester City part of it is where I'm baffled. You know, maybe this has all been a little bit of a domino effect. So Arteta goes to Arsenal. You've got the number one chair vacant in Manchester. Maybe Van Bronckhorst was going to go to New York but wasn't really all that keen on it. And then that started to become a possibility, and he thought that he would be the number 2 at Manchester with the potential for that becoming a number 1 not that far down the road. And it didn't happen when Guardiola decided to keep the same staff that he's had all season and just move the chairs around a little bit. And maybe he didn't like that so much and decided to leave. I don't know. It's a fascinating thing because it's not even just a New York situation. Van Bronckhorst was looked at as a potential replacement for Guardiola when he decides to go. And I could honestly see that day coming sooner rather than later. I don't expect Pep Guardiola to be in Manchester in 2022 to start the 22-23 campaign. I could see him potentially coming back for one more year. but he's been at Manchester longer than he's been anywhere else. I don't think he's going to be there that much longer. And I don't know if Van Bronckhorst thinks that maybe he could get back in that mix later, or he doesn't want to wait, or what. But this is a very interesting situation in bigger things than just NYC. So we'll have to see how that plays itself out.
Different dominoes in different places. And that's, yeah, I mean, you're looking at multiple leagues in multiple countries, and what you thought was going to happen in this country is now not happening. So, all right, what are you going to do now, NYCFC?
Don't know, but the Florida Cup is a thing that is starting up very soon, and then there's CONCACAF, and I don't think there's anybody left at the table who could take that job on a quick turn. So who are you going to turn to? I feel like you're probably turning to somebody who knows the league and is out of work right now, and I don't know who that would really be, because I think you've got to do something quick, and I don't know if you can afford to make the decision to bring in somebody from outside who doesn't know MLS, because I don't know if you're really going to have a staff that would know. You're going to have to you'd have to hire somebody as an assistant who would know the league inside and out, and not every manager wants to go through that. So NYC's in a really tough spot right now, and we'll have to see how they dig their way out of it. Other rumors before we wrap up. Kevin Baxter, LA Times. This could get announced at any point now that it is just about 8 o'clock on the West Coast. LA Galaxy, according to Baxter, have signed Emiliano Insua, left back, started his career at Boca Juniors, went to Liverpool, made 44 appearances in all competitions in 2009-10, played in Turkey, Portugal, Spain. He's at Stuttgart. He's been there since 2015. They're in Germany's second division. Just relegated this year. Reportedly would not be a TAM deal, which would be a coup if you can pull that off. If they pulled that off and got him for less than TAM money, that's a huge accomplishment by that front office. They had to get better defensively. They've been working to do that. And even losing Diego Polenta, who is not going to re-sign with the Galaxy, he's headed to Uruguay to sign with Olimpia. You're still better defensively getting Insua, and with the other upgrades the Galaxy have made. They got Giancarlo Gonzalez mid-season last year. You got Danilo Acosta. You're probably going to move Skelvik back into the middle with Insua coming in. I think you still have more work to do, and you definitely have to go get a number 9. But this is a big move for the Galaxy. I think it's a very smart move, and you add it to Alexander Katai coming in. Mm-hmm. Pretty good work so far. They've still got more to do. Seattle still working too, and they've got work to do when you look at their roster. Pulso Sports in Seattle is reporting that Seattle is interested in Brazilian defensive midfielder Gregore. They've had initial conversations with Bahia, his club. 25 years old. They've scouted him heavily, fits their needs in the midfield. I guess if they go get him, it would mean that Gustav Svensson drops to the back line. And with right now just Xavier Arriaga as the only dedicated center back on the roster, Svensson would become his partner. You'd move Gregore into the midfield with Christian Roldan. And that's your spine, which is pretty good. But you have really very little depth at the moment if you're the defending MLS Cup champion Seattle Sounders. So they've got a lot of work to do as well. And that's, I guess, where I would want to finish this is for radio silence and worry about Atlanta United and, yes, potentially players going out. You look at the rosters for an LA Galaxy. You look at the roster for the Seattle Sounders. You look at other teams in this league. You look at NYC without a manager. There are many top teams in the league in more dire straits than Atlanta United. Doesn't mean everything is sunshine and roses, but that's what this time of year is. This is what happens. You get a lot of movement, and I think as MLS has grown and the perception has continued to grow, maybe outside of Oxford, England at least, then you're going to have more people coming in to get talent out of MLS, and you're also going to have more talent interested in coming. So welcome to silly season. It's only going to get sillier.
Nathan Pugh on your Insua note says he watched a teenaged Insua putter around in an absolutely mediocre and uninspiring Liverpool squad in the 09-10 season, so I'm not sure what an old Insua will actually do for the Galaxy.
Do more than what they've done because they don't have much. He's had better stops. I mean, and as Nathan said, that might not have been the best situation for him at that time. Going from Boca as a teenager to Liverpool at that time was maybe not a great step in his career. But he's played at pretty big clubs, and he's a player that more than likely Guillermo Barros Schelotto has an understanding of and maybe a little bit of history with when he was coming up at Boca. So it makes sense. It makes sense that he would be somebody that Schelotto and his people would know, and I think probably be on the same wavelength with. So I get it. There's a rumor popping off right now that the Portland Timbers are set to sign a 24-year-old Polish striker, Yaroslav Niezgoda from Legia Warsaw. Leading scorer in the Polish top flight with 14 goals in 18 matches. They are reportedly also, I guess, anywhere ready to announce the thing, of getting Diego Chara's brother, Yemi Chara. Might be more of a wide player. So you might be, in some ways, replacing Brian Fernandez with two different players in Yemi Chara and Niezgoda. If Niezgoda becomes that number 9 that Jeremy Abobasi has not, that Brian Fernandez hinted at but couldn't maintain, keep an eye on the Timbers.
Oh, and Michael Ruiz, before we go, wanted a reset on the Oxford United take because he's not sure about that reference.
So it's starting to make the rounds now. Columbus recalled right back Chris Cadden, who was on loan at Oxford United. On the official release on Oxford United's website, their manager, Carl Robinson, is quoted as saying, "Personally, I think he has been badly advised to go and play in America at this stage of his career, and his agent isn't necessarily thinking of the player, but that is out of our hands and we move on." I saw the quote initially and was kind of surprised by it, period. I'm shocked that it would be an official club communication. Because, like it or not, from the Oxford perspective, the Columbus Crew are a bigger club than Oxford United, even if they are battling for promotion into the championship. They are. You talk about the level of talent they have, you look at the valuations of the talent, they're a bigger club. And it's, anyway, depending on not even worrying about who the clubs are, it's bad form to trash the club that you did business with in terms of a loan, and it's bad form to trash the agent of this player because you will have other clubs that want to do business with you and other agents who want to do business with you that will see this and say, you know what, maybe we're going to loan our player to a different League One club because there's nothing that Oxford has that we have to be there with this player. So, I don't know. Maybe Carl Robinson will wake up and realize he's in 2020 at some point.
Nah, maybe in 2042.
Who knows? We'll see. It's shocking to see that type of statement, period, but let alone about MLS in 2020. We'll find out what happens down the road.
Ugh. Happy New Year. He does not make me a happy man. Pretty much. But we are officially caught up on the Twitters. Is there anything else before we go?
Well, we didn't even get into Matt Doyle's piece, so that's your homework out there listening. Matt Doyle's updated shopping list for each MLS team. We'll dig into that pretty deep tomorrow and look at
who else is having radio silence, and who else has work to do in building their roster, because pretty much everybody does. And the funny thing is, one of the clubs that maybe is in the best position with their roster coming back from 2019 is New York City, but they just don't have anybody to be on the touchline to fill out the lineup sheet. So even that's negated a little bit. But we'll get into that shopping list for each MLS team. Go check it out over at MLSsoccer.com. We'll talk about that tomorrow as we're back at 9 o'clock, back on a normal schedule. Thanks, everybody, for listening today. Hope you had a great entry into 2020 and hope that it is everything that you have hoped it will be. We're only 2 days in. We've got plenty of time to make it that, and we'll all try to do that going forward. Thanks for listening. Mucha Platio.
Mucha Platio.